And what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a special episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. Today, we're joined by Justin from the Worm Burner podcast to do an awesome top 10 list where we are chatting about the top 10 foreign managers in MLS. Justin, how are you? Thanks so much for being here. It feels like we just saw you.
It seems like it's been a very short time since we've seen each other, but I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. Good. If you guys haven't seen it already, last week we did a top 10 on the Worm Burner podcast of Americans abroad. It got a little heated. It got a little fun. Go over and check that out if you haven't already. Listen, we do top 10s all the time here. People who are here know what this is about, but they also know how we do things. And that is with a scarf or a kit of the week, depending on who you are. So Justin, I'll send it your way as the guest to show us what you are rocking today.
Well, thank you so much. So my special kit for this week is going to be probably my favorite jersey of all. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it is a team from Peru. It is a team called Cienciano. The time that I ended up getting this jersey, I believe they were in the second division of Peruvian football. And a lot of people would be like, why did you get that? Well, they are the only Peruvian side to have won a continental competition. And so they just have a big following in Peru, being one of the better teams. They are in the first division now, so they have gotten promoted back up. But I have a very small side story where I played them in Football Manager and sadly got them relegated. Just if you're a fan of a football club, you don't want me supporting you because I'll get you relegated in Football Manager. But but that's my kid of the week.
Well, we are the kings of the podcast curse here. So you are one and the same with us there, my friend.
I was waiting for the Football Manager reference to come through. I knew when you were talking about like a really niche club, I'm like, there has to be some tie to Football Manager. There has to be.
Definitely.
All right, so for me, I haven't brought out this scarf in a while because it burns my skin every time I put it on. But I've got the Orlando scarf out. It is a nice scarf. I hate to admit it, but it really is. Like the lion face on it is just really cool. But that will be an homage to a certain somebody on my list.
Yeah. So I was very close to picking another scarf that would burn my neck because I thought you were going to pick it, but you didn't. So I went with our good friends in Columbus. So rocking up with, I think it's the same on both sides. Yeah, same on both sides. Not a bad one. Got this in honor of our recording with John Bush, who we talked about a little bit last episode as well. So, all right. Well, why don't we then start off with our criteria? So, what did we do to separate this big list into something a little bit more manageable? Justin, do you have anything specific you looked for while you were doing this?
The main premise that I had followed is they were not born in America. That's kind of the main premise. Overall, when it came to, I was a little more lenient when it came to some of the stuff. Like, for example, there is a person that is on this list that was born in a foreign country, but did move to the United States while they were younger. So their playing experience is actually in America. However, their roots are found in a different country. And it's actually the two of my cases. But overall, that was kind of the general gist that I had gotten with this list is as long as they weren't born in the United States, they were fair game.
All right. Connor, what about you?
I got my list of coaches from a lovely list that Transfer Market put together, which had a list of all foreign coaches that have coached in MLS. So if I have blatantly missed anybody on my list, I'm blaming that. I'm saying that now. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody. I tried to check just to make sure that I didn't, but hopefully I haven't. And then from there, I took a look at where their team finished every season while they were the coach. I know sometimes if they're hired mid-season or like right at the end of the season or something, I tried to weigh that into like whether or not I would count that particular season. Tried to be as fair as I could with that. I looked at how many matches they've coached, how many points they've won, and their points per match. And then the last thing I looked at was any awards that they won.
All right. for me, I mean, I took this big list and I cut it into basically three things. At least 50 matches in MLS, including the foreign part of it, right? 50 matches in MLS. I used a points per match of 1.4 to kind of distinguish between the top and the not so good, depending on how long they've been here. And I also said that they had to have won something, whether it be MLS Cup, Supporter Shield, or their local open sort of cup, so Canadian Championship or the Open Cup or whatever. So those are my three big ones, just to make the list a little bit more manageable. Because I think if you went to Transfer Market and you pulled up foreign MLS managers, I think it was like 100 and something things. So I wasn't going through all of that. So that was my criteria. But usually, how we do this is we'll start with some honorable mentions. So who just missed out for you, Justin, that you think maybe was worth a shout?
Oh goodness. So I don't really have any honorable mentions.
Okay.
When it came to this overall list, I think overall the general premise that you had actually had with your list, I didn't even recognize it, but every single manager on this list has won a trophy. So good on me for that. So, but unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I do not have any honorable mentions.
Hey, that's okay. Sometimes there's a big divide between 10 and 11. That's okay. Connor, what about you?
I've got 4.
Me too.
I've got Hans Bach. I've got Dom Torrent, Patrick Vieira, and absolute legend. I expect to see him number 1 on both of your lists, Frank de Boer.
There's no way you put him out. Get out.
He actually has a really good seat. Like, you could obviously everywhere else he's been garbage, but he was third with Atlanta. He won 2 trophies that season. He hit a 1.78 points per match. I kind of like, I think so I put him on here a little bit for the memes, but at the same time, he kind of deserved to be there.
He went like 7 games without scoring.
With Atlanta?
Yeah, didn't he start off awful with Atlanta?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I very much remember that.
Because the turnaround must have been insane then.
Because they let him go. It had to have been because they let him go. He got picked up immediately by like the Netherlands, and the Netherlands went and didn't score in like 4 games straight. We're like, we told you this. Or it was the other way around where he was terrible with the Netherlands. Then he comes into Atlanta. It's like, what are you doing? And then he can't score.
It was Palace.
It was Palace, yeah. And it's like, we've been through this already. Like, we know that this is going to happen. He took Josef Martinez, Miguel Almiron, and all those other big attacking players and made them awful. South American player of the year, Pity Martinez.
Where is the awful? They were 3rd in the league, in the supporters.
No, the beginning of the year. The beginning of the year.
I will be looking this up because I don't remember any of this.
Go right ahead.
Josef scored like 30 plus goals under him.
No, go right ahead. What we'll do as you do that is I'll tell you my honorable mentions, which were Robert Warzika for Columbus, Carl Robinson, Gio Savarese, and Ray Hudson. Those are my 4 kind of close but not close enoughs.
I feel that's fair.
While you do your review, we'll go and pick number 10, and we'll send it to our guest first. Justin, who do you got at number 10?
Put me on the spot. Goodness gracious. No. My number 10 is strongly due to the fact of being the first manager ever hired for the MLS inaugural season. It is Ron Newman. He ended up managing Kansas City Wizards, ended up winning the Western Conference title with them. But to be the first ever MLS inaugural season manager, it landed me number 10 for May.
I like it. I did just confirm that his first 4 games in charge, they lost 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, and 3-0. Now, I will say that does include the MLS's back tournament, so weigh that in there. But he left Palace, where he got 5 games at Palace in 2017. He scored once. He had his Palace team scored once, and it was against Ipswich in the Cup. They fired him, brought him into Atlanta, and yes, he turned things around, no doubt. But his first 4 games, they didn't score a goal, and then they needed a game against FC Cincinnati to turn things around, and that's 2020 FC Cincinnati, not current.
I think you're missing a year. He was there in 2019, and then yes, 2020 he was garbage, and as soon as they got knocked out of MLS's back, I think they fired him.
Gotcha. Okay, maybe that is.
And in that regard, they scored Okay, so they scored their second game in their second game with him in charge, but it was against FCC.
Yes, I'm seeing this now. So in 2019, they had the round of 16 where they needed a miracle run against Herodino, and then they in MLS they didn't score. They didn't score in the quarterfinals against Monterey, and then they scored against FCC. So a
They,
slow
they,
start for
they,
sure.
they scored in the second leg against Monterey, not the first leg.
Correct. Anyways, we've just gone brutally
Yeah,
off.
with a huge tangent on Frank De
Here we
Boer. It
go.
was just supposed to be a meme pick.
Yeah, par for the course. Got it. What do you got at 10?
I think he's going to be higher on your list, but I've gone for Ronnie Dyla for NYCFC at 10. He finished 7th, 8th, and 5th in the Supporters Shield in his 3 seasons with NYCFC. He won that fraudulent MLS Cup after Philly just got COVID on the entire team. I say fraudulent because I truly believe that Philly team fully healthy would have beat NYCFC. But anyway, regardless, he's still got an MLS Cup on his CV. He had a really strong points per match in 1.69. But what kept him low on my list is the fact that he only managed 67 games here. So if you're talking about that 50 game cutoff that Andrew was talking about, he like just qualifies for that. And that knocked him down my list a little bit. But he was very good when he was here. Pretty consistently solid for NYCFC. And got that MLS Cup, which I think just bumped him up a little bit above like guys like Patrick Vieira or Dom Torrent, who weren't able to get that same silverware.
Mr. Wright, you get 2 high fives. The first one, COVID Cup. We do not recognize NYC's COVID Cup. The second one is Ronnie Dyla at 10 because that's where I've got
let's go.
as well. What a great start. The first and only guy under 100 games. There's a reason that I moved it to I kind of moved it because I wanted to get him in there because he did have a very, very decent showing. I can't say anything good because it was New York City, but in a very, very short stint, he did win COVID Cup with the worst team in the playoffs. Give him a little bit of credit there. If he didn't win that MLS Cup, he's not there. But he did take the 4th place team in the East, beat a New England side who was on holiday for a month, Philly's 3rd team, and a pretty mid-Portland side to get, Oh, wait, they did also beat Atlanta in that game, in that run too, didn't they? Yeah, they did. That sucks. But no, so the I give him credit for that because he came out, I remember specifically come out and being like, this team's garbage. Like it is not good enough to make it. And if we win MLS Cup, I will strip down to my underwear and party. And they won MLS Cup and he did it on the field. So he took a team and really he got the best out of Tati Castellanos, turned him into a $15 million striker, right? He got the best out of Macti Morales and Santi Rodriguez and pulled those guys and turned them into really good players. So, I'll give him credit there. But yeah, we do not recognize COVID Cup on this podcast. So well done. Let's just jump right into 9 then, keep this rolling. And we'll just go in the same order. Justin, we'll start with you. Number 9.
Sure. Number 9, I think it's a perfect segue that we're talking about impact in terms of what a manager has done for a team. I saw my number 9 as Gary Smith, being able to win the MLS Cup with the Colorado Rapids and then being able to have the impact that he's had at Nashville SC. Arguably, they are definitely a team to watch now, especially making it to the League's Cup final against Inter Miami, where I'm fairly confident the majority of the country, if not the non-Messi fans, were cheering for Nashville. It's been a unbelievable stint while he was at Nashville. I think he's out of the job currently, right?
Yep, he got released.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to double check on that.
Yep.
But overall, to have the impact he has had at Nashville, and especially with a new team in the league and be there for 4 years, to the best of my knowledge, have the impact he's had, arguably that it's a very comfortable number 9 for me.
I will reserve my judgment.
All right. I can go with my number 9.
Oh, no.
All right, go right on then.
As much as I want Andrew and I to have the same list, we're already going to be different on number 9 because I have Robert Warszawa at number 9.
Okay.
The Columbus Crew keeper.
Keeper.
Coach. He was there from 2009 to 2013. Although now that I say that, I feel like maybe I added an additional year there. But He did win the Supporter Shield one of the years he was there. Also got Columbus to 5th and ninth while he was there. 1.46 points per match was okay. Wasn't too great, wasn't too bad. But I think what bumped him into my list was just he was relatively solid consistently across, but the Supporter Shield I think is what bumped him up. I mean, I don't want to admit that Supporter Shield is better than MLS Cup until Atlanta win one, but I'll just leave it at that.
Did you notice how you confused him to be the goalkeeper instead of a right winger, because the goalkeeper had more impact on your thought process than some random right winger on a English team? Sorry, am I referencing our episode last week? Yeah, you should go check that out. I yelled at Connor a lot. My number 9, again, what would this list be without a little bit of Metro magic? So I've gone with Octavio Zambrano at 9. He does have a Supporter Shield to his name. He coached in LA in 98, but he also finished second in 97 and 99. Again, very small group of teams, right? So he took over the Metro Stars after they're historically bad, and I mean second worst season of all time, 1999 year, and they finished in second in 2000. Again, I'm combining that with the fact that there were 10 teams in the league at the time, so it's a little less impressive. But the fact that he was able to go second, first, second, and then take a team that finished dead last and bring them to second shows that he has a bit of quality. But again, I had to knock him down for how much, how little resistance he faced from other teams, because there just weren't enough to stop him.
I'll reserve judgment.
I am reserving judgment on that.
Love it. Listen, I'm all for former Metro Star managers getting higher praise. Like I said, Hans Baca definitely number 1. Thinking Gerard Struber number 2. Jesse Marsh is pretty much Canadian now. You can put him at 1A. We're all good there. But while we wait there and list off more foreign Metro managers, let's talk number 8. Justin, what do you got?
Number 8, this one kills me. And Connor, I wanted to take a quick moment and appreciate your scarf of the week, because that is my team, my local team here in the Orlando area. But it kills me to say my number 8 pick is Oscar Pareja. He has had the pleasure of working with both Orlando City, again, my local side, and then also FC Dallas, winning the Supporters Shield with them and the US Open Cup. And really transformed the Orlando City side that we've seen so far, winning the U.S. Open Cup against, well, arguably a lesser-known opponent in the Sacramento Republic. However, definitely has transformed the side. And honestly, I'm very grateful to have him as the manager for Orlando City. Of course, I have some gripes when it comes to his managerial side, but overall, I definitely think he deserves to be on this list regardless of the criticisms that I have for him. That he's a fantastic manager and a worthy number 8 for me.
I will reserve my judgment.
I will also reserve my judgment.
This is good. This is way better than it was before, so that's good. Connor, what do you got today?
Yes, it was.
So my number 8, I know is not going to be on your list, or unless you have different statistics, but I don't think he met one of your criteria to make the list. But I've gone for Thomas Rongen at number 8. He was a little bit of a journeyman in terms of being a coach. Started with Tampa Bay Mutiny in their first ever season, won the first ever Supporter Shield. And I know you can make the argument, there's only 10 teams or whatever, but I mean, he still won the Supporter Shield. So at the end of the day, it's on his CV just like it is anybody else's who's won it recently. A couple of seasons in New England where he was not so great. Then he went to DC in 99, from 99 to 2001, where he won another Supporter Shield in his first year with DC. And then DC was garbage, finishing 11th and 10th in the Supporter Shield out of, I think, 12 teams. And then to end off his final season as a coach in MLS was with the infamous 2005 Chivas USA, scouting players through FIFA. So, but at the end of the day, his CV is not too bad. I mean, it's pretty strong. I mean, he was a one-time coach of the year, 2-time Supporter Shield. He won MLS Cup, but those really bad years is what knocked him down the list for me. I mean, the fact that he's at 1.37 points per game is a testament to how bad he was in some of those seasons with like New England, DC, and Chivas. But when he was at the top, I mean, he was he was at the top. I mean, he was finishing first in the Supporter Shield when he was doing well. So the awards, I think, is what bumped him into my list for me.
Yeah, gonna have to hold off judgment on that one.
I didn't think I thought you said you had a 1.4 cutoffs, but maybe you calculated different than
I took
I
whatever
just.
transfer market told me, baby.
Okay, okay, fair enough.
I'll double check just to make sure I didn't mess anything up. But yeah, now I'm
I
going
love
to
it regardless.
yeah. Interesting. Oh, I see. So he did go low, but because of the way it went into my spreadsheet, it rounded up to 1.4. So he made
You
the cut.
always have spreadsheet problems. That's always the excuse.
It's
Ah,
spreadsheet.
the formula was wrong. Oh, he's just magically disappeared from my list.
I've
It's
got I've
always
got I've got
something.
two people in there who shouldn't be in there.
Well, it's too late now, so you got to
That's
keep him
funny.
in.
We move, fam. We move. For me, number 8, I'm rolling with one of my favorites in the league currently. Not for necessarily success, but just for some vibes, baby. Vanni Sartini out of Vancouver took over in 2021, team that hadn't made the playoffs since 2017 and only won one Canadian championship in 11 tries. I put CCC there like it was Champions Cup. I was like, wait a second, they didn't do that. Since that time, he's gotten them to the playoffs twice in 3 tries, won back-to-back Canadian championships, and has created a fun, attacking, and must-watch style of play that has made Brian White look good. And if Red Bull couldn't do it, nobody could do it. I kid. Whether it's his sideline antics, press conferences, or rock star moments on stage, he has made Vancouver better and more enjoyable to watch. And I believe that outside of his fun off the field and his antics, he has also been very, very good at making this a good Vancouver side, something we haven't said for, a decade? So up into the list for me.
Oh, Vanni Sartini for me.
Oh, you hate vibes. You hate fun.
He is fun. He is vibes, but
Yeah,
that's not part of my criteria,
I
unfortunately.
know. Yeah, this is why your list is always wrong. You pick off of numbers and stats, not vibes, man.
That might honestly be true.
Yeah, Justin, you got it. You got him on there. You waiting?
I might be waiting. Hold on.
All right.
We'll see.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to 7 then and see what Justin's got at 7.
So I have went along the same route as Andrew. I have gone with a current manager for number 7. I would say vibes is a big factor having to do with this one, but I digress. I will see. It is Wilfred Nancy with the Columbus Crew. So the reason why I've gone with it, yeah, Andrew's just having a fit over there.
Bloody hell.
But the way that he was able to turn around, not turn around, but have the impact he did at Montreal with the Canadian Championship, as well as turning this Columbus Crew side into the formidable opponents that they are. He has the 3rd best points per game out of the foreign managers that we have on this list, with over 100 games played, or 100 games managed, I should say, in the MLS. I was really hesitant on putting him higher, or I wanted to put him higher. However, for impact and for some of the other reasons that I have on this list, I have him at number 7. He's been a phenomenal manager so far, and if he stays here in the United States, and especially if he keeps continuing the success that he has at Columbus Crew, I definitely have no qualms with having him higher. Or if you guys have him higher, I have absolutely no qualms with that at all.
Noted. We'll chat later.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go with mine then.
Yeah, go ahead. Unless you have something. I guess you're saving your judgment too.
So my number 7 is also Wilfred Nazi. So I'm right on board with you, Justin.
Wow.
Um, I think recency bias is going to have people coming for our throats. Because Nancy obviously has Columbus like playing really, really well. And they played well last year, and they look great again this year. He turned around a Montreal side and made them look good, which was definitely impressive. But he had 1.68 points per game, which was high. Don't get me wrong. It was definitely high. This is not like he's won an MLS Cup and he won a Canadian championship, but there just hasn't been a ton of silverware yet. I think there's more to come for him. But without counting the current season, because that's not done yet, it's been 2 strong years so far, which is really great. Like, I think he has huge potential. I want to see him coach the national team, and that's a whole separate conversation. But I think he's a really, really great manager. He's the exact type of manager that this league needs to have and keep. And I think he'll get there with time. I just think it hasn't been enough time yet. I mean, it's been 2 strong full seasons so far, a third in the making at the moment. But I just want to see a bit more before I'm putting him like top 5, like him win a bit more silverware and have a bit more strong seasons under his belt.
The only thing you said there that was correct was Wilfred Nancy to USMNT. In this house, we manifest Wilfred Nancy to the US men's national team. Other than
Yes.
that, I'll reserve my judgment. I'll give you my 7, and my 7 is Peter Novak. He was head coach of this dominant DC side 04 to 06, got himself an MLS Cup, a Supporter Shield, third place finish overall in 05. He then took that success and jumped into the national team setup where he took charge of and successfully won a Gold Cup cycle with the men's national team. In DC, he worked with Aleko Eskandarian, Christian Gomez, and this bum of the year, bum of the decade, bum of the century, Jaime Moreno. I don't know how long can we go back? Bum of the eon, something like that. He was dominant in his side with DC, and then he also took over Philly in their first 3 years of existence, and he did get them a third place finish in the East in 2011. Again, that DC side was dumb good. So how much of it was coaching and how much of it was just, hey, put the ball out there and play? You know, I wasn't watching in 04, so I can't tell you that, but he does have good finishes over his time in MLS and was relatively successful as you can be as an expansion side. So I'm okay with him at 7 there. I mean, you can maybe put him lower if you like, but I'm cool with him at 7 there.
I'm going to take us out of order and finally give Justin a chance to not have to go first this round because he's been going first for literally the entire
episode. Yeah, you're fair.
So it's a little bit unfair, but I'm going to jump in here because at 6, I've also got Peter. Well, not also, but at 6, I have Peter Novak.
Oh, no, I knocked the camera down.
Pretty much for very similar reasons to what you were saying. Like, obviously, very strong time with DC, but like you said, that might have just been like just don't do anything crazy stupid and you'll be successful. Philly was less successful outside of the 2011 season, but 2010 and 2012 were not great. I mean, we know what early Philly was like when they first joined the league. So in terms of silverware, a Supporter Shield and MLS Cup is nothing to scoff at. But his 1.41 points per match was not great. Mm-hmm. So it kind of bumped him down my list a little bit too. But yeah, I mean, I think his silverware is a little bit, it's definitely better than like Nancy. Why I have Nancy behind him. I think if Nancy gets like another cup or he gets a Supporter Shield or something like that, I think he would jump Novak.
Just Novak? Okay.
Well, not just Novak. He would jump more. He would jump more, but I'm just saying I can't tell you who else is in front of Novak. It
doesn't matter. Anyways, Justin, I'll let you go second then. Let's see where you're at.
Sure. So I am doing a throwback with my number 6. We are going to the first ever MLS head coach of the year and the first ever Supporter Shield winner, and that is going to be Thomas Rongen. We have a very, very solid season with this first season at the Tampa Bay Mutiny. Ended up finding even more success in the MLS, winning the MLS Cup and the Supporter Shield again with DC United. I feel like going into this list, the MLS head coach of the year was a big factor going into this. And the fact that he was the very first one to win it put him at number 6 in my book. He had, again, 2 tremendous seasons, both with 2 different teams. Unfortunately, the Mutiny is no longer in the MLS, but with the team and the leagues expanding the way that they are, maybe that might be a possibility. Regardless, I feel like for my number 6, it was a good start going into the MLS head coach of the year. being the very first ever. So, again, I like my firsts here on my list.
I'm going to do something crazy here, and I'm going to give you 6 and a 5.
Who said you're allowed to do that?
Whose podcast is this? You're just along for the ride, buddy. Don't be doing something silly like that. So my number, both of these guys have been mentioned already, but I figured it's easy to roll it in. Gary Smith is number 6 for me. I didn't know. I mean, I knew, but it took me a while to remember that he was at Colorado, right? And he won the 2010 World Cup, 2010 MLS Cup. He took over in 2009. They didn't make the playoffs since 2007. And then after a down year in 2009, he gets to the playoffs and instantly wins the thing with a team that had the 3rd lowest market value. And again, that's not a really good value, to understand what teams are like, but they had the least number of internationals in the league as well. He brought the best out of guys like Connor Casey, Quincy Amarikwa, Mehdi Bellucci, Jeff Lorenowitz, Matt Pickens, Drew Moore. I mean, names that now we all know as world beaters. He brought them out of being just kind of mid and turned them into champions. And then he goes to Nashville and takes an expansion side, makes playoffs 4 to the 4 years, gets them to a point where he was released, but he had done all he could with them. He got them to a level where they needed to be. I think he's definitely one of the better international managers of all time. And then my number 5, and the reason I brought this up, is Thomas Rongen, a movie star at number 5, recent star of the film Next Goal Wins. I believe somebody plays him, but it's based off of his time with American Samoa. But one of the most sought after managers in early MLS, all over the league with Tampa Bay, RIP, won the league's first ever Supporter Shield Coach of the Year, New England, DC, where he did the MLS Cup Supporter Shield double, transitions into the U20 role where he plays a huge part in developing players like Drew Moore, Chad Marshall, Freddie Adu, Eddie Johnson. I mean, all these names, they just ring off. I do believe he is a top 5 foreign manager in MLS. You might be able to make the argument of top 5 or at least top 10 coach of all time, American or not. That's an argument to be had.
All right.
Go on, Connor. Give me 5. Give me 5, buddy.
5 is going to be an interesting one because I think he's going to be super high on Justin's list, and I think he may not even be on your list at all, Andrew. So my number 5, potentially the middle ground between you two, is Frank Yallop, who has won a lot of silverware, but at the same time has had a lot of bad seasons as well. He has coached a ton in MLS. Kicked things off with San Jose from 2001 to 2003, where he was very good. Had them 5th, 2nd, and 2nd in the Supporter Shield. Then he goes to the Galaxy and is not very good in 06 and 07, finishing 9th and 11th in the Supporter Shield. And then he's back at San Jose, where it's literally like a roller coaster ride, going like 14th, 14th, 8th in the Supporter Shield. And then out of nowhere, a Supporter Shield win in, I think, 2012. And then goes right back to being bad again in 2013 with a 10th in the Supporter Shield, which I know 10th nowadays is strong. I think in 2013, that might have been like mid-table-ish. So just keep that in mind. And then he finishes it off with Chicago in 2014, 2015, 15th and 20th in the Supporter Shield. All of that culminated in a 1.34 points per match, which is pretty low. If you look at the transfer market list, I don't know what happened, but they doubled his points for some reason on there. So they say he had 996 points. I believe he only actually had like 498 when I did the math. I think they doubled it. His points per match is really poor. I think probably because of the later years, especially those 2 Chicago seasons. But the fact that he won 2 MLS Cups, a Supporter Shield, and Coach of the Year twice, I had to put him on my list. And I think those awards alone put him top 5 for me. But the reason he wasn't higher was just the fact that he had a lot of bad seasons in there.
Judgment reserved.
I was surprised I thought you said 1.4 was your cutoff.
Did you hear me when I corrected myself? Said I had 2 coaches who were underneath that threshold.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you don't listen. I know you don't listen to me ever, but
okay. I thought maybe there was another coach that was in there, but anyway.
Justin, I think you go with 5 now, yeah?
Yeah. So I am bringing my judgment in to what I was reserving it for before, and that is going to be my number 5 is Octavio Zambrano. Having the seasons that he did at LAFC, or not LAFC, sorry. Oh gosh.
Whoops.
The LA
Power of
Galaxy.
editing.
Yes, power of editing. No, but to measure the impact he had at the Galaxy was just unbelievable. Winning their first ever Supporter Shield, in general, having that kind of an impact as the manager. I wanted to add the point to Andrew's pick and have honestly, I know that it was a very early time when it came to MLS. The league was not as developed as it is now, but to have the development that it did, as little as it was, and take a Galaxy side to the CONCACAF Champions League final is a huge deal. I think that's the reason why I had him so highly, because this was the very first American side to ever make the CONCACAF Champions League final. And unfortunately, due to the fact that the Mexican side was just, I forgot what the Mexican side was that they played, but they were the better opponent on the night. However, I just to say the least, he had to be top five for me. He had to be. But just for the impact that he had at the Galaxy and then the CONCACAF Champions League, was a huge deal.
Love it.
Or reserve judgment.
Ooh, wow.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Connor, go ahead and give us 4 then. I'm hoping that's where your judgment comes in.
It's not.
Wow.
I think you're not going to like my number 4 because you might be biased.
When have I ever been biased? Stop that.
Oh, never. My number 4 is Steve Nicol for the New England Revolution.
Okay.
There from 2002 to 2011, and he was a model of consistency while there. In terms of Supporter Shield finishes for New England, outside of their last 2 years, but I'll still run through the full thing. 5th, 3rd, 9th, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, 13th, and 17th. I know there weren't a ton of teams at that point in time,
How is that consistent? I just plotted that in my head and it does this. Whoosh, whoosh.
It's just the end that's not the consistent. I mean, he was top 5.
If you put a best
5
line
times
onto that, it is negative. And it's also an R squared value of like 0.2.
All right, numbers nerd, shut up.
Yeah, let's go ahead and be calm with that.
He was top 5 6 times while with New England, and that was 6 times out of 7 seasons. Like 6 out of 7 seasons, he was top 5. That's pretty consistent to me. This was during the Twellman time, where Twellman was kind of the star of that team, and during the time he was there, he won U.S. Open Cup, North American Superliga, and he was a coach of the year at one point while there. His points per game were a bit low at 1.38. I do think that is skewed by the last 2 seasons that he was there, where they finished 13th and 17th in the Supporter Shield. I think without those, it would be much higher. 302 matches coached was super high as well. He was there for a long period of time for a reason. Really, the thing that held him back is the fact that it's the thing we talk about always consistently with New England's history, never getting to the finish line, constantly falling short in MLS Cup, constantly falling short in Supporter Shield. But he was incredibly consistently good with this team. 6 out of 7 years, top 5 in Supporter Shield is crazy. If you can get that nowadays, you would be one of the best coaches of all time. And I understand it would be different now because there's so many more teams. But to still be that consistently good when you see other coaches like Frank Yallop and Thomas Rongen, when we talk about them, and constantly going from like first to last. I think he would have been a little bit higher if he could have gotten to that finish line a bit more, and that's what held him back. But I had to give credit for how consistently good he had that team for a long time.
So your 4th best foreign manager of all time is a guy who's never won anything.
I mean, he's won stuff. He just hasn't won a cup
or
a Supporter Shield.
So no cup, no Supporter Shield.
He won U.S. Open Cup and he won the North American Superliga.
Okay, none of those are on his list, so I'll give you a pass there. I still think top 4 is.
He also won Coach of the Year.
That I'll give you. So I'll give you that. He was on kind of like my short list of. I mean, he didn't make it because of points per game for me, but I'll give you that. Um, I think 4 is criminally high.
Sure, you could definitely feel free to think of this high, but
If
it
you
was
put him at 9, I'm cool with it. You put him at 7, I think it's still a little high. Four's diabolical.
I'm struggling to find teams that were as consistently as high up as New England was, other than like Seattle. Like they were just good for so long. And I don't see that consistency with the other teams. Even like LA Galaxy or DC have years where they finish like dead last.
Consistently mid. Because
I guess mid is top five in supporter shield.
if you're not first, you might as well be last.
That's fair. If you have that mentality, then he's definitely way lower on your list because he was definitely last in a lot of things then. Look, I won't disagree if people want to put him lower. I won't disagree. 100%. I understand where they're coming from.
Okay. Well, I'll go to Justin for 4 then and see what he's rolling with.
Sure. So I think with Connor's original synopsis in thought, I think he hit the nail right on the head when it came to my view of this person. And there's one specific reason why I viewed him so highly. However, it's not for being the manager of the San Jose Earthquakes. It's for his Galaxy contribution, but it is Frank Yell. So he ended up, of course, as Connor had gone over, 2 MLS Cups, Supporter Shield, winning Coach of the Year 2 times, both in 2001 and 2012. The reason why I have him so highly is because he was there for the inaugural season of David Beckham with the Galaxy. To say the least, Beckham's stretch of the MLS and the importance, impact of it is astronomical and still affecting the league to this day. So to be the manager of the Galaxy, and while yes, the majority of his success was from the San Jose Earthquakes, to be the manager of the Galaxy when they brought in arguably one of the best players in the world to the club, and it was straight from Real Madrid or was it no it was straight from Real, or was it from PSG?
Yep. Nope, it was from Real and he went to PSG after.
Okay. So yeah, to bring a player like that into the MLS and be the manager, the first manager that this player is contributed to the MLS, I think says a lot. And I would again rate the San Jose wins the cups with the MLS and Supporter Shield highly, but the fact that he was manager of the Galaxy with Beckham, it just puts top 4 to me.
I will reserve judgment, but I also did not know he was in charge of that Galaxy side, which is funny because we did a whole MLS history thing on it, and it just must have slipped my mind, which is funny.
That was your story.
It was. Then that's what I mean. Like, I feel like I would have known that. Like, I would have written something in like Frank Yallop's LA Galaxy. Like, that's how I usually introduce teams. So that's a tidbit I either forgot or just learned. So very nice. No disagreements. I will say at number 4, I've got Oscar Pereja, most tenured coach on my list. 380 games between Colorado, Dallas, Orlando, 1.5 points per match in 12 seasons, a Supporter Shield US Open Cup double, a separate US Open Cup with Orlando. He was the guy to take Orlando from perennial losers in their first few years of expansion to a playoff and regular season force. Now, again, he's having a down year this year, but his long-term success and ability to take teams from bad or even just mid-level to high-level competitors and championship winners is very, very impressive. And the fact that he's still around, even after making that move to Liga MX and back, I think is a very, very important note to his career. I think he's done magical things with teams that he probably shouldn't have. And then it's given him the backing to get players that he wanted. So, I like Oscar Pereja. I'd be okay if you wanted him to go lower. I'd be, I'm not sold on him at 4, but I think it's a good spot for him.
Reserving judgment.
Connor really put his rival coach at number 1. That's wild.
You have no idea who I put at number 1.
I'm going to jump in here at 3 because I've been reserving judgment for a while, but it is Frank Yallop for me at 3. Again, one of the guys who got on here when he kind of missed my points per match here, but not many managers can say they have 2 MLS Cups And on this list, Yallop is the only one. He also has the most important trophy in MLS, the Supporter Shield. So what I really enjoyed was that he was with San Jose, 2001, 2003, MLS Cup. Lovely, right? He then goes to Canada and then LA Galaxy. And then after the whole relocation episode with San Jose and their Houston, debacle, he comes back and is a big part of their rebuilding. And after just 3 years, he brings a Supporter Shield back to that side. That to me is really, really impressive. I really, really like that. And he is the only foreign manager to win Coach of the Year twice. So I think that's a top 3 shout for foreign manager of all time.
I mean, you're not gonna hear disagreements from us. We both
No, spot
we're both
on.
right here.
No, well, Connor, what you're supposed to say is, yeah, you're right. I should have put him at 3. 4 was close. I could give Justin the pass, but Connor, you're supposed to accept your silliness.
I'd definitely would be willing to move him above Steve Nicol and put him at 4.
That I see. That's what I'm hoping for. Good decision. Tell me your 3 then, Connor. What do you got?
My number 3 was someone I was also reserving judgment on. I've gone for Octavio Zambrano at 3, which
Wow.
you might say is high, but he has a very high points per game number, on top of also winning a Supporter Shield, and again, consistently having a team fighting in the playoffs and doing well in the regular season as well. 4th place and 1st place with the LA Galaxy in 97 and 98. And then from 2000 to 2002 with the Metro Stars, he had them 3rd, 6th, and 9th in the Supporter Shield. All that culminated in him having a 1.73 points per game, which we see a lot with the more recent managers. I think it looks like, when you look at the people who are higher up in the points per game, it's like a few of the recent NYCFC coaches. It's Wilfred Nancy. It's, Frank DeBoer, But Octavio Zambrano is like the only person who coached in the old days of MLS who had that high of a points per game from a foreign manager perspective. So that to me was something that jumped out and made me put him higher up in the list at 3.
Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with that explanation. I still think 3 is a little high, but I'm okay with the explanation. I think it's your reasoning isn't crazy. Not like Wilfred Nancy crazy, but
You're just saying this because he's Red Bull and you like Red Bull.
so I wish I could say that was actually, but I actually genuinely don't hate your reasoning behind it. So, all right, Justin, what do you got at 3? I think we're at 3. Yeah,
Sure. So I think I might take a little bit of slack for my number 3. I don't know. We'll see. But he is currently the assistant manager at FC Cincinnati, and that is Dominic Kinnear.
Oh, okay.
To have the success that he has had is undeniable. That, I mean, he's been able to win the Supporter Shield with San Jose Earthquakes, on top of 2 MLS Cups with the Houston Dynamo, and then again with the Houston Dynamo winning 4 conference championships, is already impressive in itself. He then goes to be the assistant, or I think his assistant managerial experience with San Jose preceded his head coaching, but 2 MLS Cups with the San Jose Earthquake, and again another conference championship with them. But then also taking that success to FC Cincinnati and winning their Supporter Shield in this latest year has been unbelievable. Again, for a foreign manager in this list, is the success is wild here. I think on this list he is one of the most decorated. Yeah, no, he is the second most decorated on my list for number 3, and arguably had a huge impact on him on pretty much anywhere he went, and still sending ripples throughout the MLS with FC Cincinnati, which my local area is Florida, but where I was born is the Midwest, so I have to rep the Midwest when I can. So, but that is my number 3 pick.
I love that pick. What I'm trying to figure out is why he wasn't on my list to begin with.
So I was looking that up while we were going. They didn't put him on the transfer market list because he represented the US. So they probably didn't consider him a foreign manager, but he is from Scotland. So he should totally count. And based off that, absolutely is
100,
definitely
yeah,
high up
100%.
there.
This is why it's tough to do big lists like this, because you're always, if it's not included or there's one little ripple, well, now we're screwed, right? That's a great find, Justin. Well done. That's a perfect pick. I no
No
issues
notes.
at all. I would probably I'd knock Ronnie Dotto off this list. Hell yeah, to put him back in there, 100%. Yeah,
I'm
easy.
surprised you even had to think about that. Knocking an
Well,
NYC coach off the list.
because I was trying to think, I'm like, oh wait, because yeah, no, that's easy. So I'm cool with it. Awesome. Let's do our top two, which I've got my first line here saying we get to the easiest top two in the entire top 10 series, but quite clearly something has messed up here. So I'm gonna let you guys go for two. I'll go Connor first.
All right. Definitely zero bias in my pick here. But I have gone for Tata Martino at number 2 for his time not only at Atlanta, but for his brief time that he has had with Inter Miami so far. He has coached 101 matches in MLS, which was surprisingly more than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
181 points out of 101 games has given him a 1.79 points per game, which I believe is the highest out of any foreign manager that's played like more than 5 games, probably. It's way up there. He has been phenomenal. He was unbelievably good with Atlanta. He has turned this Inter Miami team into one of the best teams in MLS, and might have to do with a certain Misai guy on that team. But regardless, he's also won silverware as well to back up the success that he's had in the points per game. He's got an MLS Cup to his name. I don't know if you remember that one, Andrew, but he did win one while also beating Red Bull. He's got a Leagues Cup, and he also won Coach of the Year. So he's had a great CV so far. I think it's only going to get better while he is head coach of Miami and Messi. But he's been unbelievably good when he's here.
My guy really put Gonzalo Pineda as number one. That's wild. That's wild.
You said it, not me.
Justin, what do you got?
No, I have to jump on the hype train with Connor. My number two is Martino as well. Having the season that he did or the seasons he did have with Atlanta United. In their second year ever in the MLS, they ended up winning the whole thing, which is absolutely unbelievable to say the least. Winning the MLS Coach of the Year, and then I added this little tidbit. I thought it was cool. I thought it made it more headline news, but the MLS All-Star Manager as well. He was selected as so. But to add to Connor's point as well, he is the highest points per game average out of all foreign managers with over 100 games. And that's, again, that 1.79 points per game, which is absolutely ridiculous to say the least. And I just wanted to add as well to Connor's point, he was absolutely instrumental in the signing of Messi to Inter Miami. I think without him without him as manager of Inter Miami, I don't think that move happens. Yes, of course, you have David Beckham, but I think Martino is the glue that allowed that move to happen. So that's one of the main reasons why he's my number two.
No,
I have a feeling he's going to be Andrew's number 1.
I got a reserved judgment there, but I think Connor actually didn't pick Pineda. I think Connor finally went with a vibes pick and put Matias Almeida as the number 1 foreign manager of all time. Man marking Jackson Ewell at center back, bro. It doesn't get better than that.
There's only one man for that list. It has to be him.
Awesome. All right, we need to go all the way back to this Wilfred Nancy at 7 garbage. He has revolutionized the way that the game is played in MLS with Columbus and with Montreal. He literally had nothing, turned Montreal into a team that was 1 win away from the Supporter Shield, left because they sold all his players without giving him anything back. Then he took over a Columbus team and created one of the best styles of football this league has ever seen. And he did it through youth development, commitment, and buy-in. That is the difference. The biggest issue with foreign managers coming overseas is that they are not used to playing with so much youth. They are used to being like, people keep saying, oh, Pep would come in and run this league. Pep can't buy $1 billion worth of defenders. So he would not be successful because he doesn't know how to do it with the youth. Wilfred Nancy has completely revolutionized youth development from both Montreal, they were one of the leaders in when he was there in homegrown minutes, and now in Columbus, where he has won the second most important trophy in MLS, the MLS Cup, with a team that was half full of homegrowns that were young homegrowns too, not like Sean Davis homegrowns where he's been in the league for 10 years. That is so impressive to me because I know I've seen it firsthand. I've watched Red Bull go through Gerhard Struber. I've watched Red Bull go through Hans Baca, who were good when they had Thierry Henry and when they had other players. I'm not saying Wilfred Nancy didn't have Cucho or Diego Rossi or whatever, but he surrounded them with other players that were really successful in a much tougher league than anybody else has. And he then went and made a deep run in CCC where if they don't poison their food, maybe Columbus is walking away with a Champions Cup. We were talking about this team being the best team in MLS history 4 weeks ago. And it wasn't just because Cucho was on the team, because they were managed properly. I think I can understand if you want to drop him lower. Like I could put him maybe at 4, but 7 I think is a bit harsh to me. I think 2. I can hear 2 for being high because he has only really done it for a couple of years, right? But I do think that 7 is a bit low.
I need to see more seasons from him first before I can bump him higher.
Unfortunately, you're not going to. The dude's gonna take the
don't say that
to the World Cup. You know?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say he was going to leave the league, but if he's going to leave the league for the national team, that's fine. That's allowed.
I mean, listen, if we win World Cup with him, I'll let him leave. That's fine. Sacrifices, you know.
I think in terms of coaching ability, he's 100% top 3 for me. I just want to see more than 2 seasons worth. And he was good in the 2 seasons, don't get me wrong. Like you said, completely changed that Montreal team and has absolutely made this Columbus team so much fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to see a bit more because at the end of the day, he only has the MLS Cup and the Canadian Championship, but he's got one MLS Cup to his name, and I think he's due to get more in the future, but he hasn't had enough time to win more yet.
As a guy who has been now in the coaching circle for 4 years now, I can't describe to you how difficult it is to get a team to play like that with young players, like to get them to understand that when. And again, it may be because of the system they grew up in, but for the most part, those guys you're getting are hit it long, track it down, and then possess. Like we're going to get it high first, or we're going to press high. We're going to be really athletic. Like to get them to play technically like that. And again, he's got cheat codes, man. He plays with Darlington Nagbe in the midfield. Nobody loses with Darlington Nagbe in the midfield. Like it's just not, just doesn't happen. I wish he was in the national team more, but it's just so impressive. When you talk about Wilfred Nancy being the benchmark of what we want coaches to be from this point forward, that's really important to me, right? How many times have we heard, like, if we don't want Nancy to go, but Connor, I think you said it when we were here. These are the types of coaches we want in the league, right? Not because he wins games, not because he plays the youth, but because he does it properly. He plays really, really nice football. So, and he wins with really, really nice football. I can find a middle ground, but I think it needs to lean more towards the top 3 than the bottom 3.
We didn't have him in the bottom 3 anyway, so
you had him at 7, so bottom 4.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I spewed a bunch. Let's send it to our guest for his number 1 international manager.
Sure. So that was just to preface as well. I think the argument for Wilfred was very strong. I will absolutely concede. I'm willing to have him higher. I just don't know how much higher. But as you were alluding, my number 1, it was a bit of a stretch. So he was originally born in Germany, but moved to the United States when he was about 9 to 10 years old. I feel like my number 1 absolutely had to be Siegfried Siggy Schmid. I mean, what he has done in MLS is, bar none, probably some of the biggest achievements you could possibly imagine. He was the reason why there was a rivalry between the Galaxy and DC because of Bruce Arena. He was that guy. Having a 46.11% win percentage as a manager, with 694 games, 320 of them were wins. had an average points per game of 1.46. He had the MLS Head Coach of the Year award named after him in 2018, after unfortunately he had passed away. He won the CONCACAF Champions League with the Galaxy, as well as the Open Cup and the MLS and the Supporter Shield. Won the Supporter Shield with the Columbus Crew and MLS Cup. Then went to, I would say, one of the more successful. I don't know if I would put it more successful than Galaxy, because again, CONCACAF Champions League, but four U.S. Open Cup titles with the Seattle Sounders, and then a Supporter Shield title as well with the Sounders, and 2 MLS Coaches of the Year. I mean, arguably, it had to be Siggy. It had to be Siggy for me.
I love it. He's listed as an American on Transfer Market, so he's not on my list. But I absolutely agree with you that if it was considered, because as you mentioned, he was born in Germany, so I can, and we did that with the Americans abroad too, right? Born in Germany, great. I would 100% have him at number 1 if it was included that way. But he is considered an American manager, so at least on Transfer Market, and that's, as I mentioned when because you had asked me 2 weeks ago when we were prepping this, like, does it count if, and then you kind of explained it to me. I was like, I'm going off a Transfer Market, but you do it. And I told you, you do what you feel is good, and knocked it out of the park. Great pick. Connor.
Yeah. No, I agree. If I would put Siggy number 1 as well. I mean, he's probably like top 3 manager in MLS history, regardless of where they're from.
Yeah.
My number 1 is based on my scarf. I've gone for Oscar Pareja as number 1.
You really did put him at 1. What a bump.
I did. I think you both covered him a decent amount already. So, I mean, I'm not going to rehash and go over all the stuff that you talked about before. But one of the reasons that I leaned heavily towards Pareja is kind of similar to what you were talking about with Wilfred Nancy and the ability to like turn things around. When he first goes to Dallas, I believe it's in 2014. The 2 seasons prior, Dallas misses the playoffs. Then he comes into Dallas and is immediately making them a playoff team, and a good playoff team at that. Not just squeaking in, like 6th in the Supporter Shield. Then he's 2nd in the Supporter Shield. Then he wins the Supporter Shield. And we talked about those Dallas teams. Those were strong Dallas teams. These were not like Colorado Rapids finishing 1st in the Western Conference type of team. Like, this is a good team. So he did that in Dallas. He was successful there. He moves on. Then he comes back, takes over an Orlando team that is, sorry to say, but a bit of a mess. pretty garbage since they joined MLS. The Kaka era was not great for them. He comes in 2019, and the first year's a bit of a rough year, 22nd in the Supporter Shield. But then immediately things turn around. 5th in the Supporter Shield, 10th, 13th, 2nd in the Supporter Shield just this last season. Like, we talked about Orlando turning around and becoming a successful franchise in the league. He is the man that was in charge for that turnaround. He turned around 2 teams that were missing playoffs before he joined. That to me weighed heavily. I mean, his points per game was already strong at 1.54, and I think it would have been even better if you kind of exclude that 1 year transition period with Orlando, the first year he was there. But on top of that, he's also got a Supporter Shield with Dallas. He's won the U.S. Open Cup twice, and he was a Coach of the Year. All those things considered, I put him number 1. He's the guy I think of when I think of foreign coaches in MLS.
Not the guy that literally gave your team an MLS Cup. Really?
Yeah, I mean,
you think of Oscar Pareja over Tata Martino as
he was the first person I would think of as foreign managers for his time with Dallas.
Dude, I don't even think Orlando or Dallas fans are thinking of Oscar Pareja as the first name on the list when you think of foreign MLS managers. What an absolute stretch of a pick. Goodness me.
Whatever you say.
The clear and obvious winner is Tata Martino, with an MLS Cup to his name. But if you look closely on the engraving, it actually has an asterisk and it says Chris Armas's cup, but he gave it away because of his tactical decisions, because he didn't know how to freaking coach. But what gets him there for me, outside of the brilliant play from Atlanta, from startup, runs them as an expansion team, one of the best expansion teams in recent history, right? You think of LAFC, you think of Seattle, you think of Atlanta, right? To the point where when we talk about expansion teams now, you are either an FCC, a Minnesota or an Atlanta and LAFC, right? In those sorts of frames of mind. But really, for me, after he left, and he gets bonus points for tanking Mexico into a piece of garbage that they are now. So big ups Tata for that. But for me, really, what he's done with Inter Miami this year is really, really impressive. I know everybody's like, oh, and you mentioned like Messi. Messi has played 12 games this year. Inter Miami have played 22. In those 22, they have 3 losses, and Messi played in one of them. So of the 10 games that he didn't play for them, they've only lost twice. That means that they have had players that are all these big superstars that are supposed to run the league, and they're still winning without them. That's great coaching, and that's good talent development. I mean, I watched them play the other day. They had this guy at left or right back that I think they drafted like something Wigan, and the dude was great because he's been coached well. You can tell that he's thinking about what he's been told to do. He's doing it well. And again, yes, they've got Sergio Busquets who's possessing the ball well. Alba's really, really strong on the left hand side. Messi isn't in any of these games that they've been playing recently, and they've been very, very good. Now, are they going to hold that up for the rest of the year? That's a different conversation for another time. But his ability in MLS has been really, really good from start to finish. I think you mentioned the highest points per match of any coach on our list, bar maybe Ziggy Smith, because I haven't kept him on there. This dude is the actual person that people think of when you think of international managers in MLS.
It's hard for me to put him one.
How?
You're
an Atlanta
wait,
fan.
hold
It should be easy.
on. Hold on. It's hard for me to put him one when he's only had 2 full seasons so far in the league. I think he can definitely, like, after this full season with Miami, he's number 1. Like, as long as things don't just completely fall off the rails. Like, we talked early in the season about where we thought Miami was going to be. And we said, like, just getting into the playoffs because we thought the rotation was going to hurt them. Exactly what you said. I think it's a testament to how good of a coach he's been, that they're sitting top of the table right now, or top of the East. But I knocked Nancy for it because he had 2 good seasons, and I knocked him lower on the list. Tata Martino's in the same bucket right now because he's only had 2 full seasons in the league. It was just hard for me to put him one when it's just been such a small sample size so far. But I don't disagree with you that I think he's a better coach than Pareja. But I just wanted to see a bit more time, or like a bit more full time here before I bumped him up to 1.
Didn't stop you from putting Pulisic over Tim Howard, but that's another story.
Pulisic had like 14,000 minutes.
All right. Anything you want to add to that, Justin, before we close it up?
Don't listen to Andrew Connor. Number 1, Orlando City. Let's go.
I love it. You know what? I'll sit here all day and make clips of Connor supporting his rivals. I'm cool with it. Let's do it. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening.
I don't have bias. That's all it shows.
Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Justin, thanks so much for being here. We had a great time. This was really fun. Make sure you go check out his episode we did last week on Americans Abroad. Justin, tell them where to find you so they can go see that and all your other stuff.
Absolutely. You can check out our Facebook, facebook.com/The Wormburner Podcast. You can check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all the sorts. You can also go to our Twitter, which is at WormburnerPDCST. Again, that's WormburnerPDCST. And we also have our own website, which is the-wormburner-podcast.captivate.fm. Again, the-wormburner-podcast.captivate.fm. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. This was genuinely a treat, honestly.
Yeah, this was a good time. We haven't done a top 10 in a little bit because there's been so much MLS news to cover, but it was good to get back and do it again. Yeah, Con?
Huh? What?
Don't worry about it. If you guys enjoyed what we do and you're new here, we do stuff like this often. We're also in the MLS news, not reporting, but more reacting world. So anything big breaking, we're going to talk about St. Louis and their coaching moves and their new DP. We're going to talk about Fidel Barajas moving, and as well Julian Carranza on his way out in our next episode. So make sure you're here for that. Actually, that might have already gone out based off of the way that this is going to be scheduled. So go back and watch it. See what you think about it. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, wherever. And then on social media, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok are our three big ones. But yeah, we do stuff like this. If you're new, MLS news, we do top tens and kind of games like that. MLS history is another big one we like to do, and we're going to be doing a lot more collabs here soon. So make sure you follow us as well. Justin, thanks again for being here. We really enjoyed it, and we will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.